Welcome to Creators Are Brands, the show that explores how storytellers are building brands online. This show is part of the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. I got to do the intro stuff. Let's talk to Katie Xu. Katie Xu is buzzing on TikTok right now. And I'll tell you how I know that you're buzzing. I have a burner account, and I logged into that one. I use that account to look for creators to pair them with, for brand campaigns. And when I logged into that one, that has no connection with my personal account, your face kept popping up.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
So yeah, no, I love the run, the momentum that you have with your videos right now. And you're doing it in a way that's like, it's very much like talking with people on TikTok. It's not talking at them, and that's kind of like something that I noticed about you. You're good at, it's like, it feels like you're just like doing this with your audience. So Katie, welcome to the show. And tell me, let's just start it right out the gate. What is your TikTok strategy right now?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Tom. My TikTok strategy at this second is to make my TikTok strategy as easy as possible. That's my goal. My goal is to be able to like set down my phone, film something that just came to mind for like 10 minutes, edit it down for 2, post it, and reach 100,000 people. Like, that's kind of my goal, is to have that sort of like quick and easy workflow that also works for my TikTok.
Yep. And when I first reached out to you, I think that you were maybe you're at like 40,000. Now you're at around 68, 70,000. And by the time people hear this, might be 100,000. Who knows? But so that you're saying that's your strategy right now, is you're almost setting it up for consistency. You're the ability to keep showing up. And that's smart, because at the beginning when I started, I was making these elaborate edits, and then I couldn't be as consistent as the platform needed me to be. I started then dumbing down my content, not dumbing it down, but simplifying it so I can create more and kind of share more of my free thinking. So you said your strategy is an idea pops into your head and you film for 10 minutes and then edit. Do you have bullets of scripts, or like what's the angle?
No, so like there's like 2 kinds of videos I make, I guess. One of them is the one that just pops up into my head. The other is a little bit more planned out, but when I do those, I want it to be like energetically when I can articulate it well without having to script. Because like some days I'm so articulate, I can say whatever I want. Some days I just cannot get it out.
Yep. Okay, and then what is working right now on TikTok? From you're doing the strategy, you film for a little bit, what are you noticing about the videos that are working?
Yeah, I guess on a similar note, like the ones that are working are the ones that I like have a clear like takeaway in my head. Like, I don't have to plan out a lesson necessarily in each video, but sometimes if I throw out an idea that hasn't been like fully formulated prior to me like creating the video, it like doesn't come across as well. I don't know how to explain it, but I guess
that makes a lot of sense. I pick up what you're putting down with that.
Yeah, does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, I think what you said is kind of being tapped into another idea that you talk about, and that's another one that I wanted to get into, is like your niche. Like, what is your niche? It's a kind of a trick question with you.
Yeah.
Tell me about your thinking on your niche, because it's almost, I don't want to give the answer away, but tell me how you think about your niche, and then I'll kind of bring it back to the previous question.
Okay, got it. So I talk about becoming the niche. So the niche is me, and I believe the niche should be the person that owns the page, right? Because I think a lot of people just tend to categorize themselves in hopes that it will be easier for the audience to like consume your content if it's all under one category. But in doing that, you kind of lose your own personality, your own like uniqueness in the content, and you become almost like a translator for like information that's already out there. So in my opinion, every piece of content that you put out, the center of it should be you, even if you're just serving the audience with information. Like, I think a lot about like why the person that watches a video that they just found from you, why they're following you, like why they choose to follow you. Is it because you asked? Is it because you said, follow me for more? Or is it because the information is so good? Or is it because you're so good and your personality is so good? And if it's the third one, then you can continue to put out as much content as you want and they'll still always be satisfied with it.
Yeah, and I think you do a good job of weaving in useful information while sharing your personality.
Yes.
And I think you talking about your strategy before with what works is just like, hey, like I have this idea that like I need to get it out through. I need to like create something around it. That's you not looking at like, oh, here are my videos for the next 30 days. That's you like, all right, I'm experiencing this. This is what I learned. I want to share this. And because of that, it's like unique to your story, what your mission is. And then yeah, you're just kind of on the fly. It feels like you are like a friend among your followers who are like, hey, this is what I learned. Like, I got to tell you about this.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I like to, and this is the way I think about it because I think naturally, if you want to provide value, like people talk directly to the person that they're trying to give advice to. But I believe like in normal human conversations, even when you're talking to someone in person, like when you talk about your own situation, people will naturally like start to relate to it in some way. Like they'll find their own takeaway. You don't have to really define it for them. So that's
True.
why I kind of allow myself to just talk about my own journey because I know people are going to take away from it either way.
Yeah, and so you don't go to Duke anymore, but you were studying at Duke, and then now you're all in on creating right now.
Right now, yes. So technically, I'm on a year off.
Okay, but as the opportunities come in, I know that you're probably getting some consulting opportunities. What? Okay, when you say, okay, I know that you are the niche. But if you were to describe the types of subject matter that your audience is the most interested in, how would you describe it? Is it in the business entrepreneur storytelling content creator lane, like with a mix of you and your story?
That was perfect. Yeah, I would consider it like the thing that so like I guess the category might be like content creation, but
which
with
is a
more
very
of a
wide category. Yeah,
very wide category with more of like a psychological lens to it. Like I like to think a lot more about the psychology behind the person watching or the video itself, and then mix in some like entrepreneurship because that's just overall my journey. So that's what I share about.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I've been thinking about that concept more recently too. How people, I feel like this is kind of what you're doing. I don't know if you've kind of like articulated this, but someone was talking about how business is one of the best forms of self-improvement, where like a lot of people just like read books and but like they don't have any outlet to channel what they're learning through. And I feel like business and content creation, whether it's a podcast, like this goal for your TikTok channel, like these things that you're learning about yourself, like the things that you want to improve, like these habits that we're all putting in place to show up as the best version of ourselves. Like if you have like a goal like content creation, you can kind of that's like becomes your outlet for this new stuff that you're learning. I don't know. Do you think about your content in that way at all?
Yeah, totally. Like I think of it as like well, with the whole goals, everything I've said at the very beginning about how like I'm trying to make my content as like simple to make as possible. The goal really is that me improving on myself and me growing and me sharing it simply becomes the job at hand.
That's I like that way of looking at it. And then it becomes something that I think you're doing. Like a lot of people skip that question of like, how do I want to like what type of content is exciting for me. They usually just go towards what is working, and then they build their
Mm-hmm.
brand around that, and then they have to continue to do that. And you're doing it the other way, where you're saying like, hey, it might take a little longer, but I'm making this as true to me as possible so I can continue to enjoy this.
Exactly. And I think that comes from the perspective of me like taking a year off of school and not knowing exactly where I'll be a couple months from now. So the goal really is, can I take this brand wherever I go?
Yeah. Oh, so like if you do go back to school, you can weave that in. If you build a business, you can
Yeah.
weave it in. And yeah, all right, I like that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a couple tactical things. You have this concept. I'm gonna call it the no hook, where you were like and you said this on the phone, and then I think that you do this. You said this in one of your videos too. You talk about how like you can buy. Everyone's selling like 100 hooks for TikTok. Like you can use ChatGPT to find 100 hooks for TikTok. Like, and you're saying you usually make the video and then you cut out the hook. Like you get right into
Hmm.
the information. So tell me more about your
Yes.
thinking on that.
Yeah. So the word hook, I think, has a bad connotation to it. It's like the word hook is
Oh,
literally like you're trying to hook the audience, right? And reel them in and like convince them to watch the whole video. But like, in my opinion, people forget that like, okay, you get them to watch the first 3 seconds. Can you get them to watch the whole thing? And if so, because that's like almost the easy part, if so, can they watch the whole thing and actually enjoy it? Or are they just watching because you've tricked them to and they know it? Like, the audience is not as like gullible, I think, as people think they are. I would rather people watch my whole 3 minute video wanting to like make popcorn and like actually like indulge in it than like just be watching it for 3 minutes waiting for an end result that I promised them at the beginning. Does that make sense?
yeah, oh, no, it certainly does. And even with the hooks, I've kind of felt similar, where it's like once everyone's copying other people's hooks that work, those hooks aren't hooks anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They are. It's like when like Instagram ads were popping. People would come in like with the same hook every time, so that hook people get desensitized to it. So no one like
Yeah,
I can feel for a second. You can feel immediately when someone's trying to hook you, right? Instead of
exactly.
just getting into the conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. So like in terms of my no hook strategy, what is it?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
did you
yeah,
call
yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it's like more so about like convincing people that there is something interesting to watch immediately, and by cutting out. So what I do in my workflow, based on the whole like let's do it as quickly as possible, is like I don't think about the intro as I record. I don't obsess over how to rope people in, because that takes away from like the creative energy of just the idea at hand, I guess, if I'm like
Yeah.
overthinking how to format it. So I just start talking, and naturally when I start talking, like let's say I'm talking about becoming the niche, I'm gonna naturally introduce it as like, this is why I become the niche, yada yada, and then I will go into it. Um, and then I just cut off that first line. I like trim it off afterwards because the intro isn't needed. I can just replace it as text usually too.
Yeah.
But then you get
Okay.
right into it and people are like curious about what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, and I suggest everyone to go check out Katie's handles. What is the handle? It's
Katie X
the
Socials.
Katie X Socials.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then for your videos, you usually put like a text card over like at the beginning of the video. What would you call that? Like
Hmm.
a is that what is
Like
the
a
actual name for that?
title? I
A
don't
title
know.
card? Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
A title card, and then do you do that for every video?
pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Any
would say
tips for
like,
that? Any tips for
yeah,
that part of the video?
yes. So one thing I'll say is like you can obsess over how I don't know, inviting or how like psychological your text is, but ultimately the content that performs best is just good content. So I wouldn't stress too much about it. I'll tell you my exact like format that I've been using right now, at least,
That's what we want.
is, yes, is a number. I always use a number, like 3 things or 5 things But if there's only one, then I'll just use the number one. I don't know. I saw something about maybe having numbers as a
Yeah.
trick that Mr. Beast does or something. So I always do like one thing that blank does differently. And then the blank
Mm,
is like an aspirational thing. So it's either millionaires or successful content creators, sometimes me. So like three things that millionaires do differently, three things that successful content creators do differently. That's just the format that I've been using because I don't want to
yeah.
come up with more. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I might steal that. I might steal
go
that for the
for it.
next series. Okay, and then the you made a video about you were it was pretty cool. You shared a video where it kind of showed the difference between your on-camera confidence a couple months ago compared to what it is now. Can you talk to me more about how you kind of created that on-camera confidence?
Yeah,
Uh,
so
yeah.
I don't know how to define it, but for some reason, I don't know if you experienced this too, Tom, but like at the very beginning as I was like testing out content, not exactly like growing at, like an audience yet, it felt like I was just talking to a wall. Like I couldn't really picture who I was talking to because there wasn't really anyone listening. And because of that, you like at least for me, I was talking very like just like, you know, n- nice, like the way that I would talk when I'm like approaching someone in real life, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then the second I started getting a response, specifically about like me, not the content at hand. So like, I posted one video. It's the video that got me from like 1,000 followers to like 4,000 followers, and it was a very like open, transparent video. So a lot of the comments were like, oh, I resonate with this. Like, this is me. Like, I relate, all of that. Once I felt like there were real people that I was talking to, I was able to like direct my voice towards them in the next content.
Mm.
And then that kind of like stacked on top of itself. And that's kind of where the confidence came from because I know that someone's going to react because I can picture them in my head now. Did you experience
Ye-
that?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think a bit of it is funny. I think the one thing that people when they start, they don't have that much of an audience listening, and I actually found that at the beginning, like, I, it was like you're not, like no one's watching, so you should be more confident. It's like
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like I'm more confident
Yeah.
when there's like less eyeballs, and then there's more. It like so for me, like it was a little like but I get what you're saying. Now you have now it's like you can be more direct about it. Like you know the
Yeah.
very specific thing that your audience wants, and if it's almost like you're it's when you show up on camera, you're like, this is true. Like, this is what's true
And
for
then,
me. Like, and then so you're speaking that in a way that is like, when you're saying something that's true, you're more confident about it. Like, when I have a video where I find that it's usually like if I have a conversation with another creator or like a friend or an entrepreneur, and like we say something in the conversation, and I'm like, oh, I would say it to him, it makes it way more easy to say on camera. Like some of the videos,
yeah.
like I do, it's like it is forced. It's like I think the algorithm, this machine algorithm is gonna like this, but I'm not thinking of an individual, and I kind of like force an idea, like because I think it's gonna work. But usually, I'm the most confident when I'm like, yo, this is something I would actually share. I have shared to a friend. So I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you felt like, okay, I got friends now that I can talk directly to, that's when you were like, you you can just be more direct.
Yeah. It's like the difference between like hoping someone's going to hear you and like knowing that someone's there to respond. And
Yeah.
also like I totally relate to what you just said. I do a lot of consultation on the side, like one on one, and I tend to make the best videos right after those consultation calls because
Yup.
I find better ways to like word things in those calls and then I immediately share it online and it just comes across
Yeah.
better.
Because you're actually it's you when you're telling it to someone else, it's uh you, It's funny. This is kind of meta. You have to find the right words in order to make it make sense for someone to put in action, right? And like because of that, it's almost like a forcing function to be more clear in how you describe something. I just wasn't clear in that. Like I had to figure that out. But now if I want to make a video about this, I will have then practiced that and I'll be much better at it.
Perfect. Exactly. Yeah. So we just came up with an idea right there.
We did.
Now we can go off and make TikToks about it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to make a couple from this. All right. So, and now what are some common mistakes as you're consulting with people or that you've experienced yourself? What are common mistakes people make when they're starting on TikTok?
Yeah, so common mistakes. I guess the first one is just being overwhelmed with all of the technical aspects, such as what time do I post, hashtags, how often do I post? All of these questions, I think, are asked simply to avoid actually starting and actually iterating and actually posting, which at the end of the day has a much bigger, significant, like, difference on you and your content and your account and your skills than the actual like formation of everything.
Yeah, you actually shouldn't captions. You probably shouldn't think about that stuff until you make like 50 to 100 videos. You know, make 50, like build your like creative muscle, figure out what it is you want to say and how you want to show up. Then maybe complement it with that stuff, but still like I don't think the best creators are worrying too much about that, especially in the short form content.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think a lot of people look up to creators like Mr. Beast who so openly talk about how he spends so much time like optimizing for the right cuts, the right thumbnails, all of that, which is very important for him because he has that audience and he's trying to scale like to literally anyone. It's like he's starting at a much higher level than a beginner is.
Exactly. And I think there are cases I can't think off the top. Maybe like I don't know. This is just like the next obvious one. Maybe an Emma Chamberlain who didn't focus on that stuff, didn't obsess about that stuff as much. Now she is exceptionally talented herself, so I don't know if that's the perfect example. What we're trying to say is like build the creative muscle first, like figure out who you want to be, and then like a lot of those stuff that the content creator gurus teach around like timing, hashtags, it's just they're trying to find a way to package something to like show their expertise, and like that's easy stuff to point to because anyone can control that. But a lot of it is like it's the annoying thing that everyone says is like consistency, but it's not consistency that like that's what the algorithm likes. I think it's more on the individual's end of learning how you want to show up and refining your skills as a creator.
Absolutely. Like, I almost think it's more of a skill of like improv or speech in a way than it is the edit. I mean, the editing, it depends on what type of creator you want to be. If you want to be a very artistic, like you make short films on YouTube, of course the editing matters and that's part of the creative process. But if you're just like trying to be a personal brand on short form like platforms, I honestly think how you're speaking and your ability to generate your thoughts is more important and less replaceable. Like if you're spending 3 hours scripting and then you make the same edits everyone else does, it's just your face instead of somebody else's, then someone else can do that exact video.
Yep. And I have a theory that these apps want people that are doing the minimalist production to succeed. Because what happens is when they succeed, it makes it feel more accessible to more people. So if people are doing like these elaborate edits and all this crazy stuff, like yeah, some people like their storytelling is so good that it'll work. But I think a lot of the short form apps, like they want people to use the features right on their phone to be able to create, because that inspires more creators to be like, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah, totally. That's super smart.
Okay, one more question here. Tell me about your theory on whitelisting.
Oh my gosh. So I was talking to Tom about this yesterday. Whitelisting, in my opinion, is it's just something that I personally don't plan on doing with my TikTok account, because at least for me, when I see people whitelisting, and for those of you who don't know, whitelisting is when you do a brand deal, you post it on your own profile, and the brand is able to put money behind it and promote it on your profile, which I think is probably better for the brand because it is coming from the creator themselves. So it's a little bit more trustworthy than running it from the brand's end. But
Yep.
from the perspective of me as a creator, I focus so, and you know this from the hook conversation, I focus so much on when people like find me on their For You page, when they scroll and it's me, I want them to be able to stop and be excited for the content that is coming next. And that's like a trust that I have to build over time. So if I start showing up as an ad, and it's so clearly being promoted, then I have a theory that I'm just training my own audience to swipe right when they find my video, and see my face. And I don't want that to translate over to my actual content, because
Yeah.
that's what I do with people that I follow for sure.
That's I love that. I was like, oh, yeah, that's interesting, because I've done whitelisting before, and I was like, oh, I was just doing that with my audience, and then like, like it makes sense. Like I see where you're coming from. Like in my situation, I was with, the reason I did it was because it was with Spotify, and it was like it was like it was because you can charge like this is what I would say, if you're gonna do whitelisting, because of the reason Katie just said, make sure you charge a lot. Like so throw
Yes.
out a number that you feel like is
Yeah.
like ridiculous and they wouldn't pay, and that's sort of what I did with Spotify, and they said yeah. So I was like, okay, cool, because I was thinking, okay, at least it's associated with an established brand. So if maybe top of mind is like, that's almost like a brand where it's like it's almost validating in the market that it was like around using Spotify as a podcast, the podcasting app for advertisers. And I was like, well, that's the world that I'm in, and that's one of the brands that are at the the most respected in the space. So I was like, it's worth it then if the money's right, and it's actually elevating my presence as like someone that talks about the creator economy space.
Totally. I think it's like a mark of credibility for you.
Yeah. See, you just worded it much more cleaner than I did. All right. And then, yeah, so I'm trying to think, anything else that you want to share with people around what they need to know around building on TikTok right now?
That it's not too late. I think I've seen a lot of people talk about like, oh, it's too late for me. I missed the train. Especially other creators who, like, who are on YouTube or other platforms already and feel like they haven't been able to get their start on TikTok or haven't been able to figure it out. I'd say it's really not too late. And the one tip I have is to not try and translate your content that you already have elsewhere onto the platform, but really, really focus on TikTok if you want to grow there. I think like there's an obvious disconnect if you're just repurposing onto TikTok. What do you think about that?
I agree. I all the platforms, all the platforms are definitely different. I would say if you're starting out, don't try to be on all of them. Own one. Try to learn the specifics of that one, and then maybe say, how can I repurpose? Some might be, it might be easier to go from TikTok to YouTube. I don't know. Like, depending on what the platform is prioritizing at that time, it could look differently. But I think at the beginning, it's hard to figure out all of them at once. Just pick one. Pick a goal for a period of time that you want to put this focus in, and then look at it and say, hey, okay, what do I want to build from here?
I love that. That's exactly what happened to me. Was like I was so overwhelmed with wanting to start a podcast, start a YouTube channel, repurpose everywhere, set up all the flows before I had an audience, that I literally had to grab a sheet of paper and write down, okay, for the next 30 days, I only post on TikTok. And
Nice.
that's what really started my consistency.
That's beautiful. Katie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, where can we go check out your content?
Yeah, all of my handles are KatieXSocials. And Tom, thank you so much for having me.